If you've been successful in entrepreneurship, business, investing, or even life in general, but you aren't actually clear on what you're striving towards, then it's highly likely that you've just been lucky. The real question you need to ask yourself is, how long will your luck last if you continue to drift aimlessly without doing things with intentionality, without clarity, or without a clear goal in mind? As entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors, we are go getters by nature, and that can lead us to try to be all things to all people.
In this episode, you're going to learn the most important element you need to take your wealth creation journey to the next level. And our secret sauce for today's episode, our wealth secret sauce, is always be niching. We're going to niche down on niching down in all aspects of business, finances, and life to help you determine how you can better direct your time, energy, and overall focus on becoming the expert you need to be.
Let's go. Welcome to the Canadian Wealth Secrets Podcast with Kyle Pierce and John Orr. We are recovering high school mathematics teachers and education consultants whose entrepreneurial spirit led us to begin multiple businesses in real estate investing, digital courses, and coaching and consulting after the bell rang at dismissal time.
And fast forward a decade later, where we've grown our portfolios and time freedom to the point where we can now help entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors grow their wealth into a legacy that lasts generations through hidden investment and tax secrets your financial advisors won't believe are true.
All right, John, let's dig in here today. The episode is, we're all about niching down. We're going to niche on niching. And, why this is on our minds is because, we've had this long journey of businesses. We were working, first of all, as educators, right, in the classroom. And, at that point, you can actually look all the way back then and sort of see how this advice could have been really helpful to us, right? We were trying to work with students. We were trying to be all things to all people. Fast forward now to the work that we do now. And it's like we still seem to want to have this drive to help as many people as possible. But in reality, it just isn't realistic to be able to provide all things to all people. And we really want to kind of go down this rabbit hole a little bit to niche down on what should we be doing instead in order to essentially not only, grow our businesses, but ultimately do it in a more effective, authoritative way.
I think you said it in the introduction, but the most important aspect of running your own business or managing your finances, or like we said before, like in anything that is you're dealing with on a regular basis in your life, the secret sauce is clarity. Like you have to have clear pathway. You have to have a clear image of what you're after. So that change, that turns into so many different things that we need to niche down. So think about being clear is how you niche down into certain aspects of your life, your finance life, your business life, your personal life. So what we need to do is like the thing that drives you to be the most successful wealth creator, the person that's going to build their wealth into a legacy that lasts, is how to get clarity on these things. How do I get clarity on what my business objectives are? How do I get clarity on what our personal finance goals are, and where should my money be on that? How do I get clarity in my day-to-day interactions with the people I work with, my employees, my family members, like being very clear on how you're helping people, or how you're changing your business, or how you're managing your personal wealth is the secret sauce to, becoming, just wealth, just having wealth in all of those areas.
I love it. I love it. And, it's funny because when we think about it, you can look at things from two different parts of the spectrum. You can go one side of the spectrum and say, oftentimes we almost niche down in a certain pillar of our life. So we go hard on work, for example, and then we ignore these other pillars. We've talked about the five pillars, right? And, your health, your family, your friends, your job. Those are the things that sometimes we find ourselves sort of over niching on a pillar, but then it's like once you're in that pillar, you almost want to do everything within it. So let's think about this for a second. Like, think about your average business owner. You're in a business and you want to be the best at everything possible that your business can serve. So I want to use an example just from everyday life. Like, let's think about, a repair shop for cars, right? You're a repair shop. That's niching down, I suppose. You don't fix everything. You fix cars and trucks. Sure, that's great. But what do you specialize in? And I think that's the real question here is like, are you just another repair shop? So dime a dozen, every repair shop's the same? Or do you go all in on one thing and do it better than everyone else? And when we think about this, really, when we talk about niching down, it's really about thinking about who is that specific group that we're looking to serve, or what's that specific goal that we have that we want to achieve, and trying not to get distracted by all the rest. Because you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I could try to have the best oil change shop and then get distracted when someone comes in and says they want to do brakes. And you're like, well, I can do that really well too. Right. And then the next
Mm-hmm.
person comes in with a banged up, bumper, and you're, well, I know how to fix that too. And then all of a sudden you're doing a lot of things and maybe really well, but it's not apparent to anyone else. And I would argue that it actually distracts you from being the best oil change place that there is, right? It's like, what is my sort of unique ability, my unique offering that I can bring to that world? Well, I haven't committed enough time and energy towards focusing on that, on focusing
Mm-hmm.
how to improve that process. How do I take that 30 minutes, oil change down to 20 minutes? Sort of reminds me of the idea, what is it like, 7-minute abs. And it's like, well, like, how do you get it to 6-minute abs? Right. And I can't remember what movie it's
That's
from, but
something about Mary. That's something about
there it
Mary.
is. There it is. Yeah. It's like, no, I got it. I got it. It's 6-minute abs. I don't even know what the numbers are. However, it's the same idea, but we're talking about it, trying to be realistic here and say, you know what, if you're just doing it the way that everybody else is doing it, are you actually serving people in the best way possible? Can I do this as best I can? Now, I'm using a specific, scenario like, an
Mm-hmm.
auto repair shop, but the same's true in, say, life,
Right.
business, personal, finance, health, all of these
Right.
areas. It comes down to this idea about getting clear on what it's after. If, like, today, this morning during my workout, I want abs, and I'm going to focus all on my abs. And then it's like tomorrow I forget about that goal and I want to be the fastest runner ever. It's like you're doing a lot of good stuff, but are you actually getting closer to your real goal, to the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you set out to do at the beginning?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Kyle, why do you think people who aren't focusing on, the thing and niching down on whatever aspect and going like, I need to make sure that that piece is tip top, that piece that I really want to focus on is important. So if it's in business, like what you're saying is like I'm niching down to help and serve that person or that custom avatar. When we talked about our students, we were like, we want to make sure, when we were, back in a different life when we were teachers, we wanted to help a certain group of students and
Mm-hmm.
crafted so many resources on helping that one group of student change their disposition towards mathematics. And so when we think about it and zoom out to all aspects, like why do we think like if I've been successful in business and I haven't kind of zeroed in on different areas to make sure that they are, all the holes are plugged and make sure that I've kind of niched down on where I need to niche down or I've set my objectives. Like I didn't do that. We said
Mm-hmm.
before is like you must have been lucky. Like why
Yeah.
why would you get lucky? Like how does it work? Like how do I get lucky and not have those things?
Well, I've got a funny feeling that people who are listening to this podcast, especially those who are entrepreneurs, the business owners, the investors out there, that you are go-getters, right? You're a
Hmm.
go-getter and you're a hard worker, and you're going to work as hard as you possibly can, and you're not going to quit. And all of those things, I think, when you talk about hard work and opportunity, that's sort of the definition that some have as to what
Right.
luck really is. However,
Just work hard and it'll work out.
Yeah. And I actually, a lot of me says I agree with that. Like if you work as hard as you possibly can and you don't quit, opportunity is going to arrive. It's going to find you and you're going to be lucky. But could we do it better? Like imagine a world where wherever you are in that journey, imagine if we went and said, wow, I committed, I don't know how many thousands of hours, 10,000 hours to doing this thing. And imagine if someone told you later in life, they're like, you know, you could have done it in 500 hours. Like you spent 10,000 hours because you never quit, you worked hard, but
No,
because you didn't have
you
the
didn't focus on the right
clarity.
things.
Exactly. You didn't have the clarity. You didn't have the intentionality. You didn't really know what you were searching for. So you just kept working hard. And I've been there. Like, and John, I know you've been there. You're way better at this than I am. I still find myself eager to explore. I'm a fact finder, as everyone knows from our Colby test episode. So I'm driven to like explore new things. And really, what I keep trying to keep my mind, I don't want to fight that fact finder drive in me. But when I'm doing this work, I always want to go like, could this, not does it, but could this potentially help me get closer to my goal? And there's different goals for the different aspects of your life. In our business, the one that we deal with most every day, I'm working with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, specifically those who are incorporated, in helping them to have a better plan for how they can not only continue along this journey to grow their net income, their net worth, but to also do it in a way that's going to allow them to maybe take safer bets with their money because we're taking tax
Mm,
incentivized ways, or I say tax sheltered ways to do it. And this requires a lot of strategy. So every
hmm.
rabbit hole I go down, I have to ask myself a question and say, this is an interesting strategy, but does that actually help me become better at what I want to do to help serve that group of people? And if the answer is no, I got to put it on the back burner, right? I can put it in the
Hmm.
like, the weekend pile of like that free time pile,
Right.
and I get
Yeah.
to decide to do those things because I want to do
The
them.
someday maybe list.
Exactly. But I can't take my work time that I've blocked out as time to focus on this specific goal. I need to make sure that I'm committing all of that time and all of that energy towards the thing that I want to happen for that specific time block. So if it's work, what's my goal for my work that day? What's my goal for my family that day? That might mean putting the phone down, right?
Right.
Every single time block might be focusing on a different aspect of my life, but I have to decide, is this action going to get me closer to that goal? And
Right.
if you're wondering, you're like, well, I don't really have a goal for that specific thing, whether it's personal health, business, investment, whatever. If you don't have that, then you're kind of drifting, right? And we would
Right.
argue you want to pause and you want to decide, like, what is it that we're trying
Well,
to achieve here?
well, in your, let's go back to your business, for a second in what you said about, trying to get focused on how to help that particular group of people, save on their taxes or think about, how to be a wealth architect to them. Like you weren't always clear on who it was.
No.
So what led you to get more clarity, and like how did you get more clarity on that aspect of your life?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I would say, you know, much of it I think is starts with, we'll call it selfish. And I mean selfish because it's like I'm looking to serve people who I feel that I am, like I was
Mm,
trying to solve this problem for myself. I was trying to solve it for
mhm,
you and Matt.
mhm, mhm,
And I did a lot of work to do that. And that was my goal was at that time, how do I solve a very specific problem that we were facing? And I
mhm,
was able to get there. I had to put a lot of time and effort into it, but I was able to get us there to go, all right, I solved that goal. And when I look back, it's like when I got into this world, I'm like, I've always loved finance. I've always loved investing and I've always loved trying to teach and educate. So it just seemed like a great fit. Like I'm going to help everybody. And my thought was, all right, well, I'll get licensed and I'll do it all. I'm going to get licensed to help people with investments and, in their RSPs and their tax-free sale. I'm going to help them with JVs when we have deals that's going on. I'm going to help them. I did all of this stuff. And what I recognized was I'm like, it's going to be really hard to be really awesome at all of those things for every specific individual that's out there. And I started to recognize that. I'm like, well, where did I spend the most time and effort? Well, it's been on the things that we've done. So, me personally, I don't do a whole lot of RSP investing because we've always been a real estate investor, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of business owners tend to not be, I shouldn't say this, some still do pull salaries to throw it into an RSP because they're being told that's what they're supposed to do. I would argue that for many, that's not the case. I say many, not all. And I recognize that, wow, there's a very specific group of people that I can really help with something in a very unique way that other people can't do. Like anybody can help someone with an RSP, right? You're like, hey, I just want to take that RSP and go put it in index funds or whatever. It's like, I don't need to spend my time there because somebody else can do that. I don't need to be the one that goes and helps that person out. But what I want is I want to be able to, take all of this time and energy that we put into the work that we do. And I want to be able to help more people like us. Because here's the reality is that I searched for years trying to find the people out there, the different teams out there that would be able to help us strategize in such a way that would take our unique situation, having corporated businesses, having holding corps, real estate often is incorporated, but it doesn't have to be. And like, how do I do that while also still getting maybe this like feeling of safety and security in the long run when, let's say, maybe I don't want to work as much as I do now, right? And I just want to, go and take a couple months off and go somewhere. I want to have sort of that feeling that those people with pensions have, the feeling that some of those people with like really big RSPs have. But I also don't want to have the tax issue that all of those people have. And that was really, the problem I looked to solve for us. I was very
Mm-hmm.
clear on it. And now I'm like, well, why would I not want to help more people solve that same problem? Because it's something that I care so much about and I've spent so much time digging through.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like you, if you want to break this down, right? Like how do we get clear on what's most important? Is what I think what I heard Hugh here is almost like outline, like I know what my outcome needs to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want that. But how do I re-engineer it to create that? Like, what are the steps that I need to do in order to, solve that problem, which is allows me, if I solve that problem, it allows me to achieve my dream outcome,
Yeah.
which, was having that financial security, having those big RRSPs without the tax implications, like that was like, you can imagine, you can see it down the road that you wanted those things and you worked to get them. And that also made it clear who you needed to help. So it's like if I'm trying to decide on how to get clear on what the most important action is for me in my business or in my financial journey, what do I want that dream outcome to look like? And then how do I re-engineer it? And then figure out where do I spend my energy to create those pieces and how do I create those pieces? Like, what does that look like? Like, it takes planning, right? Like, it takes
Mm-hmm.
planning. It also takes dedication, and dedication can be hard, and it can be really hard. And I heard a phrase recently. My wife actually was listening, I think, to a podcast, and she heard a phrase that really stuck with her. And she said, like, you got to choose your hard, because so many things are hard, but the other option is also hard, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
hard to be in debt, right? It's hard to be in debt. Like, that's a tough life to be in debt and to like have that weighing on you. But it's also hard to like plan out your financial roadmap. Like, that's
Hmm.
hard too. But which hard do you want? Do you want to like go down the rabbit holes and try to figure the planning out and dedicate time to
Right.
making that real? Because that's hard and it takes time, but it's also hard to not do that because you create a life where it's like, man, that's a life that's hard to live. It's
I
the same
love
with
that.
exercise. It's the same with exercise, right? It's like I could exercise every day, but that's hard. But if I don't exercise every day, maybe my health, like that's what
That's hard
worried
too.
that was what worried me about my exercises. You know, I I taught with a teacher who's my age right now, but this was 10 years ago, and he died in the classroom. Heart attack, died. Like
Hmm.
fell over in front of the kids
Was
right
the
there before
I
he
was
hit the
going to make a
floor.
joke if the like calculus problem was too hard, but that would be
No, he was
rude.
a
I'm
tech
not going to
teacher,
do it. Okay.
tech teacher, and it really hit me, right? It was like, and he was around 45 years old, like early, right? Like it just, and I'm around that age now, but it was 10, 10, 15 years ago this happened, and I remember thinking like, I I don't want that to be me. Like I have to
Yeah.
make sure that my heart can, can keep me going, like
Mhm.
so I dedicated that, I was already exercising, but I was like, that is my heart. I'm going to make sure that I don't have that hard life. Like,
Sure.
and then I'm going to have this hard life instead, right? It's like, you got to choose your hard, and that can help you dictate what your dream outcome is going to be, but you got to re-engineer it.
I love it. I love it. And something that popped into my mind when you talked about it, it's almost like you could have hard now and easier later, or you
Hmm.
could have easy now and
Yeah.
harder later,
Same idea.
right? It's
Same idea.
it's like you really think about that and you go like you get both, you get both. It's easy to ignore, say, your plan for your company, right? Or your business or your, investments. It's easy to, just sort of do the thing, right? And do a bunch of saving or do a bunch of investing. But it becomes hard if later you're like in the spot and you're sort of like, I didn't really like think this through. And I was actually just on a call before we hit record, was on a call with a business owner. Awesome. Seems like an awesome individual. Has been working quite a bit, is in their 50s now, starting to like think about, like, seems like enjoys doing the work, so it's not like I'm dying to get out, but is like, you can tell has been socking away a lot of money. I would argue that this particular individual actually has been living well below their means.
Hmm.
Congratulations,
Yep.
congratulations. But I don't think it's because they just don't want to. I think it's like almost like a bit of fear, right? And it's
Hmm.
like that's the unknown. So it's like he's kind of rolling through life, or has rolled through life to this point. Had also mentioned that, every investment, this person said, every investment that I've made was a bad one, except for a really, basically like, low return, almost like guaranteed return, call it 4% or whatever. And yeah, I'm like, there's a lot of people like that. But the part that really resonated with me was that that person had been living, pulling a specific salary, which seems like, it seems low. It was under $100,000, right? Has said he's not been, not been unable to enjoy life or anything, but the size of the investments inside of this portfolio are just massive. Not to mention he owns a business that is doing quite well. So year to year, this person's getting more and more retained earnings, and it's flowing up to the holding corp. And I mean, a guy like me, like, I'm all over that. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I'm all excited. But at the same time, it's happening because there hasn't been enough, say, focus or planning around, what does that look like? What's my goal? How am I going to get there? And basically, there's some fears that this person exposed. And the fear was like, am I going to have enough to not only survive through retirement, but also leave a bit of a legacy to his child? Okay. And I'm like, yeah, those are like two really big things. But here's the crazy part: based on this, just listening to the scenario, that child is going to be living a 10x lifestyle to this particular individual. So I'm not saying that he wants to live a 10x lifestyle, but the reality is it's almost like he's living well under his means to make sure that there's protection there for the daughter. And now the daughter is literally going to be put in a position where she could live a 10x lifestyle her entire life. And that person never really even had the opportunity to kind of go there because there wasn't the appropriate planning taking place, right? So not only from
Hmm.
like a taxation perspective, this
Hmm.
person is losing money to taxes, based on the strategy they're using right now, but also actually has access to more capital. And I'm like, we could literally do some of our strategies. We can use these strategies to not only increase your net worth, your legacy over time, but we can also put more money in your pocket at the same time, with no out of pocket costs
Hmm.
and no risk. or I say no risk. It's like nothing in life is ever risk free, but I'm going to say one of the safest risks that they
Yeah.
could possibly take. And that was just one scenario. And again, it comes down to what is your goal and how am I going to get there? And if this person would have known that goal 10 years ago, 20 years ago,
Right.
40 years ago, I'm going to bet that their net worth would be dramatically different as well, right? That clarity would have allowed them to act way
Yeah.
earlier. It's still going to benefit this person. They're in their 50s. Like this is going to still benefit them. And it's great. And I love it that I'm able to kind of go, hey, look, you can get that, and a better lifestyle, whether you choose to use it or not,
Mm-hmm.
by doing these things, this very,
Right.
very particular strategy that we can put in place based on your scenario. It makes me feel like so amazing inside. And it's like the beauty is they don't have to give anything up. The only thing they're giving up is having to bet on luck.
Yeah. Yeah. And think of it like if we go back to the top of the episode, we said our secret sauce, our wealth creator secret sauce is always be niching, always thinking about what can I drill down on to get more clear on what's important. And that's what really niching is, right? It's like I want to get niched in my business. I want to make sure I serve that particular person. When we want to niche down or get very clear on what our business is after, we have to say, what are our main objectives? What are my 90-day goals? Like,
Yep.
what do I want to see the outcome look like in 90-day goals? Let's re-engineer it. How do I niche down, to create my wealth in my personal life? Like how do we help, how do we serve the people around us? Like Kyle, wonder how do I best serve my kids and also their friends on the hockey team. It's like, how do I best serve those, and what are they really going through, so that I can really understand how to best serve a particular individual in our lives. Like those are the questions we ask ourselves to be, create wealth in our life. And then I think about our finances. If we're creating wealth in our finances, you just kind of nailed it. It's like we do have to go, like, what matters most? How can I structure what I'm really after, right? That re-engineering has to happen there too. How can I niche down in my personal finances to get the thing that I'm really after,
Yep.
and to make myself feel good about doing that, and so that I can get it. And I think that's where we have to be clear. Because if we're not clear, it's been luck the whole time.
Totally, totally. That's a huge takeaway. I know for me, I struggle with this because again, like I'm the type of person that I get joy out of helping people, all people. I don't like the idea of niching down, and I want to just share something that has come up to me, a realization that I've made about this idea of like who you want to focus on. So I mentioned it just a moment ago that who I want to focus on happens to be incorporated business owners, entrepreneurs, investors. I want to help them specifically, but it doesn't mean you have to say no to other people. And I think that for me is a big takeaway. I'm not going to go out and try to seek out helping everyone. But if someone comes to me, so if you're brake king, go back to our mechanic, scenario, and you have a garage and you want to focus on brakes on cars, doesn't mean that you have to turn away anybody else that comes to you for something else. But what you want to make sure everybody knows is that you are an authority in that particular space. You don't have to turn everybody else away. And I tend to do the same thing. So I have some people that reach out about RSPs. I'm more than happy to share thoughts, ideas, next steps. And usually it means ultimately giving them an idea to think on and then trying to connect them to someone else who's a better fit
Right.
because that's their niche. But so I think for me, that's the biggest maybe takeaway is sort of look at the pillars in your life, think about the pillars, thinking that you want to, give enough to each of your pillars. But then once you hone in on that pillar, if it's finance, if it's your business, if it's, your family or your health, it's like, what are those specific goals that you're after so that when you're focused on that pillar, that you can give all that you've got towards that specific goal so that you're not leaving the rest all to luck.
Love it. Love it. Great way to kind of summarize what we chatted with here today, Kyle. If this is the first time you've listened to one of our episodes, then we want to welcome you. And we encourage you to hit the subscribe button so that you can listen to next week's episode. We release episodes every Wednesday, and you can, subscribe and get those notifications right to your device so that you don't miss out as we put out new episodes. If this is not the first episode you've listened to a number before, then consider leaving a rating and review, and that helps people find the show. It helps others decide if this show is the right fit for them. If you've decided this is the right fit for you, hey, keep on listening and make sure you leave that rating and review.
Hey there, incorporated business owners, entrepreneurs, and investors. You just heard me. That's the niche I love playing in the most, and I love hearing scenarios, situations. They're usually complex. Most of the time, people respond and say, my scenario is really complicated. They say, and I'm like, no, it's not complicated. It's complex because you're a business owner and you have a corporate structure, and that means that you could probably use a discovery call so we can run through your scenario, see if there's any ideas, any easy things that you can put into place right away, or maybe there's some bigger, loftier goals that you want to set for yourself so that you can maximize not only those profits that are coming in, those retained earnings, but also ensure that you're directing them in such a way that's going to save you in terms of the taxation, and the punitive tax system that we have, but then also lead you to growing your net worth at the same time. Hey, if that sounds like you, reach out to us, CanadianWealthSecrets.com/discovery, and we can hop on a short discovery call. Once again, CanadianWealthSecrets.com/discovery. I always strive to give you at least one big takeaway, something that you can walk away with, implement, or seek out with your advisors. Looking forward to seeing you next time.
All right, Canadian Wealth Secret Seekers. We will get into the secret sauce next time. Take care.
Just a reminder, my friends, that the content in this episode and all episodes is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice.
John Orr is a mortgage agent with Bricks Mortgage, license number M23006803. Kyle Pierce is a licensed life and accident and sickness insurance agent with the Pan Corp team, which includes corporate advisors and the Pan financial teams.